People who took revenge on their bully. What happened? Story 1. I learned how to fight, then beat the hell out of him. He left me alone from then on, got in trouble with the school. But when they called my dad to tell him I was fighting, he said, "Yeah, I bet I paid for the lessons." Wasn't that little S times head who's been bullying him? I did not get in trouble at home. Story 2. Two random strangers came during a bullying session in a public place, and they punched my bully for some time while calling me their friend. His entire class was afraid of me after that. I still don't know who my saviors were, but thank you. Damn, I didn't even want anything returned. They literally saw someone getting picked on, beat the times whole doing it, made a point of how you were their friend, and left. Literal F timesing superheroes. Story 3. In my secondary school, when you were about to leave, you'd wear your school uniform shirt on the last day and people would sign it for you. There was also an option to wear your own clothes for the last few days. So this guy who was leaving came decked out in the best of 1980 sports fashion, wielding a permanent marker instead of signing the shirts of levers. He went around scribbling on shirts of kids who were younger. Now, bear in mind, we were pretty po, and if I came home with my uniform in a mess, I'd get grief because we couldn't afford to replace it. He grabbed me and scribbled all over my shirt, and somehow using as of yet unknown Quicksilver powers, I grabbed the marker off him and managed to scribble not only all over his Sergio douchebag windbreaker, but all over his face and neck. He punched me in the T. I'm a girl, but it was worth it. Story 4. I hate the term bully in this context, but a former mad child neighbor had his shoes, understanding that it wasn't okay to throw his garbage in my yard or let his drunk friends pi times S on my house. When the county cops didn't do anything about numerous squalls, I started bagging the garbage and throwing it on his porch. He escalated the pudding rat poison and the hot dogs and throwing them to my German Shepherd mix. I saw her convulsing and found 3 packages worth of hot dogs, studded with pallets right along the fence. She pulled through, though no worse for wear. Cops said I couldn't prove who did it, so the next time he threw garbage in my yard, which usually contained the guts or waste from his hunting and fishing, I gathered fish guts into a bag, waited until he left and put them in the rafters of his porch, under the hedges of his yard, and finally inside his air conditioner unit. About 3 days later, he had all the doors and windows open. The following week, he was having the carpet replaced throughout the house. Eventually, the guts rotted away and the smell faded. But I think he knew I did it because I never found trash in my yard again. Do not F times with my dogs. And someone poisoned my dogs. The bad smell in their house would be that person's rotting corpse. Thank you for ending the story. How I would have liked. Story 5. When I was about 7 years old, there was a girl on the bus who would pull my hair and pick on me. I would come home crying. My parents asked the driver to move our assigned seating, but they refused. My dad asked me how I could fix the problem. I responded, "How can I do anything if I'm not allowed to hit?" As was the rule, Dad was like, "You're not allowed to hit, but you're allowed to not get hit." He explained what I should do, and I did it. When the girl sat next to me, I should put my back against the wall, my feet on her thigh, and slide her off the seat. She fell and cried. I got in trouble and the assigned seating was moved. Problem solved. Story 6. I was in 4th grade and had been bullied by a kid named Rocky. Swear to God that was his name, LOL. Who was in the 6th grade anyway. He would trip me, knock books out of my hands, punch me, etc. One day out in the playground, he pushed me into the merry-go-round while it was spinning. I rolled around inside while people were trying to stop it. The whole time, he's laughing at me. I get pulled out and I'm scraped up pretty good. Get taken to the office to get patched up. The teachers asked what happened. I told them I fell. Went back outside and saw him standing there with his buddies. I ran as fast as I could toward him and punched him as hard as I could in the face. Broke his nose. I just stood there looking at him, ready to fight. His buddies told him to leave me alone. I never got picked on again at school. Story 7. I grew up in a small town. We had one girl everyone thought was the prettiest in the whole wide school. She was a mean, petty B times truly awful. For example, Mike had died when I was in 5th grade. She sat behind me muttering about how funny it was that Mike had died. that he was a stupid cat, that he died because my mom was too po to take him to the vet and urging me to cry. Are you going to cry? Are you going to cry about it like a big baby? Big baby cry over your stupid cat. Everyone's gonna see you cry. You're about to cry, aren't you? And so on. This wasn't even the meanest thing she did, and she was mean to everyone. One day in 6th grade, I had enough. She didn't even do anything truly awful. I was just like Jennifer G, and decided to do something about her. I stole one of my mom's little index or recipe cards and meticulously wrote. I stuffed my bra in the big, bold letters. I stuffed that in a little gold safety pin in my jacket pocket. The next day I carefully affixed this to the back of her pink members only jacket just before the first bell rang. She walked around with this darn note all day, confused as to why people were laughing at her. She screamed and screamed when she found out. As she cried, everyone saw her cry. You should have said, are you gonna cry? Are you going to cry about it like a big baby? Baby cries over stupid paper. Everyone's gonna see you cry. And so on. Story 8. I wouldn't say I took revenge. I just finally snapped like Rarfy from A Christmas Story one day and started repeatedly punching him in the middle of math class. The teacher took me out of the class, and I figured that I was doomed and on my way to see the headmaster. She said she knew he was a bully, but hitting people in her class was not okay and never do it again. Then she placed them in detention. The bully gave some kind of grudging apology the next day and said he respected me for finally standing up for myself. Well, thanks. I guess he never bothered me again. Anyway, story 9. I was bullied heavily in middle school. I wrestled in high school at a competition. I found out I had to wrestle Josh. He was one of those bullies. I knew I could pin him, which was an auto win. Told my coach about him, and my goal wasn't to pin him, but to hurt him as long as possible. The wrestling match starts and I do every move I can think of that hurts. I didn't try to get him on his back, just kept trying into and jacking up his arms and shoulders. Took a couple shots and checked his crotch with my shoulder. Since he wasn't wearing a cup, I did the full 6 minutes and won 12-1 on points. He cried. The entire team went ballistic. The coach had told them he used to bully me, and they were cheering me on so hard. I felt like the F times inking of the world. I walked off to my team. He limped off to the athletic trainer. Story 10. I had a kid in middle school who was kind of mean to me and my friends over the course of the year. One day he tried to strangle me in gym class with a cord, kind of jokingly. However, I had had enough and went to the principal with my parents and witnesses of that event. My parents threatened the press, attempted murder charges on that kid. Also, he had been caught with a knife in his backpack. The kid was permanently expelled from the school. I believe he is actually in prison now for the attempted murder of someone else. Story 11. Well, my revenge took place years after the bullying, but let me tell you, the feeling was magnificent. I was driving one night and got rear-ended. This took me by surprise simply because this was 3 in the morning and I was the only vehicle on the road at this time in this area, or so I thought. Turns out he was driving drunk and just so happened to have neck pains and in trouble sleeping due to this traumatic event. I was able to assume for enough to pay for medical, my vehicle, and a little extra pocket money. That's what you effing get for pushing me into the locker, Chad. Story 12. In the 3rd grade, I had a kid that always used to steal my soda from me at lunch. He would chug the soda really fast, and that was pretty passive back in the day, so he was always able to get away with it. One day, the kid took my soda and lunch, drank the soda, and smushed the rest. I went home that day thinking of ways I could get him to stop. What I ended up doing was taking a can of soda from the fridge and puncturing a tiny hole in the bottom. Slowly, I let all the soda drip into a cup so I can drink it and then stuck the empty can in a bowl that was soaking in the sink. If I recall, the bowl was used to make peanut butter cookies, so it had soap and some greasy peanut water type stuff in it. Once the can was full like a regular soda can, I wiped it off and put just a drip of super glue over the hole. Well, that next day the kid stole my drink like usual, chugged the soda like usual, then proceeded to vomit all over himself. It was glorious. That, my friend, was the last stolen soda. Story 13. I had a bully in middle school named Josh, a fat kid, 3 times the size of my skinny at times. He harassed me daily for 2 years with insults, pushing and punching. One day I was on a friend's shoulders on the playground. He comes up to rip me down and grabs the next shirt and gold chain at the same time. Of course he breaks my chain. I snapped. I gave him one good karate chop to the side of his neck, which dropped him like a sack of bricks. I didn't even get in trouble, since the office knew about his constant bullying. Story 14. My first college roommate was a huge douche. I, on the other hand, was chubby, shy, and used to being bullied. Not a good combination. He and his friends would constantly pick on me, hide my stuff, dub my desk or dresser drawers, insult me, etc. When they got going, that's all they do. Just insult me until I left the room. I tried putting on headphones, but they just stripped them off. Sometimes they wouldn't let me leave. One day they were squirting me with a water bottle. I snapped and threw a pair of scissors at my roommate. Of course, they stuck in his arm. And of course, one of his D-bag friends was filming it. Long story short, parents and lawyers got involved. The roommate, etc. all stuck to the story that they hadn't done anything. During a meeting with everyone and the dean of students, they showed the video just a 1 minute or so surrounding the event as smugly sat there as if they'd won. My lawyer, thank God, asked about the rest of the video and if we could watch it all. D-Bag's lawyer stopped the idea immediately. After a quick conversation among the D-Bag's people, the whole incident was dropped 5 minutes later. A few years later, the video showed up on the internet. It's still probably out there. Story 15. As a kid, I grew up in a really bad household. Drug use, abuse, extreme poverty. I was also made fun of for being Po. It was led by a fat POS named Brock. You literally looked like Eric Hardman did in real life. One day this kid says something to me and I just snapped. I turned around, punching him in the face. He fell to the floor. I jumped on him and just kept punching. In the end, I broke one of his eye orbits, broke his nose, and knocked out a tooth or more. It took several teachers to get me off him. I was charged and kicked out of school. I'm still more proud of this than anyone should be. Story 16. How's your typical looking nerd? Scotch tape on my glasses. Very high grades, smallish size, building, radios on the bus, etc. People tried bullying me more than once, but it turns out I got a temper and always fought back. Once a much bigger kid. You know those guys who failed twice in primary school and started puberty before everyone else? Tried his luck at bullying me by locking me in a locker. How effing cliche. I know. I think I'm claustrophobic today because of it. The second I got out, I went into the classroom, walked straight up to him. He was sitting down, grabbed a chair on my way, and slammed it on his head. I don't remember much of what happened next, because I was in that redstone state of rage. He never bothered me again, and I didn't get in trouble. The teachers loved me. He was a regular bully. Story 17. When I was a kid, one of my friends liked to bully me. We played soccer together. He shoved me, tripping for no reason. And one day, as we were standing in line for a soccer passing drill, each kid runs the drill one after the other. He shoved me without thinking, and with all the parents watching, I turned in one motion and socked him square in the jaw, after which he fell over crying. My coach has seen his past behavior and made me run one single lap around the field. That was it. Years later, my dad, who was on the sidelines near this kid's dad, said the dad saw me slug his kid on the jaw and just said to his wife, "Good, that little shiz needed to learn some manners." Det, ever think that was your job, a-hole? He probably tried. Did you know how bratty kids can't be controlled unless someone beats their at times? Story 18. In elementary school, I made friends with a kid who was notoriously really bad. I wasn't a bad kid. I can't explain why we became friends. We were friends for a month or so, and then one day he decided to start effing with me, humiliating me, pushing me around, and trying to get me to be mean to other people. After a bit of this, I can't quite remember what I said, but I told him off really badly in front of people. I just shamed the hell out of him. When we were walking back in from recess, I just had a feeling he was going to come up behind me and try to sucker punch me. Then I heard the quick pitter-patter of a young boy running up on tile floors sneakily, and saw in the reflection of the wall in front of me exactly when he was going to be on me. I ducked down at the last second and broke his hand on the wall. It was the absolute most badass thing I had ever done, lol. He didn't come back to school after he went to the hospital. I hope he's well and happy and good to people though. Story 19. Not so much revenge, but payback. Similar. I know, LOL. I had him suspended twice. The school actually did something about it. He was then sent to a behavioral program where they gave him a prescription to calm down or something. He eventually came back to school and was a completely different person before, where he was a very hyper mean guy. Now he is almost monotone and emotionless. I kind of feel bad for him. Haven't seen him in over a year, but he seems to be doing okay with his life. Sounds like they just gave him a straight-up lobotomy. Story 20. I was a tubby, ugly kid who was stuck upside down in the school, been by this group of cool bully girls. Fast forward 20 years. Went through the ugly duckling stage, got rid of the train tracks, lost 2 stone, and grew to 6 feet. School reunion. Cool bully girls turned into dumpy, middle-aged squawking women and genuinely unhappy with life. Enough karma for me when they tried to make small talk, and I told them that their ugliness at school now showed on their faces. Story 21. I was bullied by a guy my age. We sat next to each other in every class because our names were next to each other in the register. He poked me, called me names, and spread rumors. The moment I snapped was the moment he tripped over and threw my back to the other side of the room. I got my revenge by breaking his nose, face, and emptying his bag and pouring water all over his books and possessions. Had a waterproof phone in there too, which broke and was pretty expensive too. Needless to say, I wasn't picked on by him again. His buddy tried to fight me for him, but let's just say he wasn't able to see after I broke his glasses. 20 years after I last saw him, I found out he started his own business. I left it a bad review on Yelp. Very satisfying. Story 22. Sometimes Hole kept bugging me on the bus in 8th grade. I completely ignored him. At first, he would get in my face and call me ugly and stupid and throw paper balls at me. One day he was sitting behind me telling me how ugly and fat I was, and I lost it. I got up and started slapping him, like open-handed slapping. This kid I did for like 2 minutes and then sat back down. The whole bus started laughing at him, and the bus driver laughing his butt off too. Told the guy to piss me off again so I would slap him again. That kid never bothered me again. It was great. Story 23. I was in 5th grade. Went to school as a guy for several years. I was short, pudgy, and had Coke bottle bottom glasses. Super easy to target by most people's definition. The guy I picked on me for a long time. I normally ignored it. Well, one day we were in the gym and he was picking on me, and I had enough. I punched him in the gut and he dropped like a sack of potatoes and started crying. He was significantly larger than me. I realized what I did and just thought, shiz, am I in so much trouble? The teacher looked at him, looked at me, gave me a nod, and that was it. The other story isn't mine, but my husband was given a pie with bodily fluids. Everybody but he knew about. He ate and found out later about the extra ingredient. The guy that did it constantly harassed him for it. My husband punched him in the jaw hard enough for it to be wired shut for 6 months. Legal action was pursued until the guy's dad found out exactly why he was punched. Charges were dropped.